Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here. First of all, thank you to EA and EA Game Changers for sponsoring this video. They didn't have to because I already produce Rivals content on my channel, but they very kindly offered to do so. So, without further ado, let's start talking about the new GDI unit, the ORCA Bomber. Now, look at its base stats. It's pretty tanky. It deals quite considerable DPS, although you've got to be aware that that's across multiple tiles. It is faster in terms of speed, and it costs 100 Tiberium, and it comes from the GDI Air Tower, the helipad. Now, most of you will be wondering, where exactly does the ORCA Bomber deal its damage? Well, I've created a small graphic to show you. It deals damage in the area below the actual model, and then the 6 hexagon tiles around it. It deals the most damage directly below the ORCA Bomber, however. The damage surrounding it is slightly reduced. So, if we look at the damage it deals, although it says it's only good versus vehicles, it also will very quickly wipe out infantry too, and you can see that it'll deal pretty significant damage. It would also clean up vehicles too very nicely along that same line of things. So you can see the ORCA Bomber has got a lot of damage, and I'm going to show you from the nod side of things just as well with some different formation setups. This shows you exactly how the AoE damage works from the ORCA Bomber, and it can deal with significant resistance in terms of damage being dealt to it. So it's pretty solid versus infantry, it's pretty solid versus vehicles. It also doesn't discriminate versus squads, so it won't kill any individual squad members before it wipes out the entire squad, which is pretty good because it will just crush through attack bikes and missile squads pretty rapidly. However, that is kind of where the use of this unit stops. It is quite a cumbersome unit, and once it releases its initial payload, you have to continue releasing bombs. Now, it works a little bit with Jackson. It will increase the reload speed, and it'll also increase the rate at which the bombs are dropped, making them very, very quick. And you can see, if you manage to deal damage over sort of singular areas, you can deal quite considerable damage to even things like a mammoth tank. But the problem with the ORCA Bomber is that it kind of fulfills a role that GDI has already got. It fulfills a role that the Mohawk gunship kind of has, and it fulfills a role that the original ORCA kind of has. Very few situations I think you're going to find where the ORCA Bomber gets like ridiculous value for 100 Tiberium. I'm also a little bit disappointed with the low base damage that it deals. I feel like a viable strategy could have been run your ORCA Bomber at the enemy's base, cycle it round, and destroy half of their base if you manage to get it over there. And you'll also notice that versus tech units, it will start to struggle, even versus sort of the zone troopers and the sandstorms of the world, because they are very, very high anti-air damage, and it takes a while to release the payload damage that the ORCA has. A single set of zone troopers will not trade well versus it, but they will get a decent amount of damage back onto it, and it will only win with this sliver of health, and also those zone troopers were moving into position when the ORCA attacked, so I imagine it will be much closer than that if they were defending. If we look at the weaknesses of the ORCA, well, of course it can't attack anything in the air, so any anti-air vehicles like Talons, like Hammerheads, although the ORCA Bomber is tanky and will take a considerable amount of work from a Talon to take down, they are not invulnerable, and they will go down to anti-air units like the Talons and the Hammerheads, and on the nod side they're obviously going to go down to things like the Phantoms and the Banshees. So I guess we need to discuss where we think the ORCA Bomber fits into decks. Well, it could be that the ORCA Bomber will be a very good anti-war factory unit. So for instance, if you start seeing lots and lots of war factories, bikes and pit bulls are not great against this. The reason that pit bulls can do well versus things like Banshees, or pit bulls can do well versus things like Mohawks, is because you can 2v1 them. Well, the ORCA Bomber stops 2v1ing and stops stacking from working out because it is indiscriminatory as to where it lands its damage. So, if you run an ORCA Bomber and you're going up against a heavy war factory deck, you're probably going to find a lot of success with this unit. However, it is 100 Tiberium, and it can be countered by a 30 Tiberium unit from the GDI side of things, and it can be countered by a 60 Tiberium unit from the nod side of things with the Banshee and the Talon. This, however, will wipe out most infantry and will wipe out most war factory units, but again, it is a unit that costs a lot, and you need to get value out of it, and with the easy counters available, it might not always find its place into decks. However, it is a threat to war factory decks, and that might be enough to help shift things around once this unit comes out. So those are my thoughts. I think it's a good unit that does a lot of damage, but it has very open and easy counters, and again fulfills a role that GDI has already got. However, it is a blanket anti-war factory and anti-infantry unit that actually, if used against heavy war factory and infantry decks, could get a lot of work done. Right, thank you very much guys for watching. I'll see you soon.